Welcome back to Unspoken, the things we don't say. Just when we left off, you were talking about some of the suspicion that exists between the Latino and the African American community, especially when people aren't together. When Latinos are together and there are no black people in the room and no white people in the room, what are those conversations like about the suspicions that Latinos may have towards black people?
I can honestly say I've never engaged or been present in a conversation where there's, that was the specific topic of conversation.
Well, from what you know.
I mean, again, depending on the instance, if it's about, their slice of the pie, if it's a context of political gamesmanship and trying to get appropriations in Springfield, for example. Yeah, there is an us versus them type of dynamic that happens there. And again, it's more so in that context, delivering for my constituents. And most of those folks, their constituents look just like them.
There are all these messages that are sent out in the media, television and radio about how black people are not embraced, not desired. Do you think that when Latinos come to this country that they hear those messages and in some ways take that in and use that as a divide against black people?
I think we all are susceptible to developing biases based on popular media and messages that we receive. When my parents first came from Mexico and my mother went to go drink at a fountain and a white woman stopped her and said, "Honey, that's the the Negro fountain. You can't drink out of it." My mom had never experienced that in Mexico, so she was being taught racism and separation. And so, unfortunately, yes, we are susceptible to that, and our children are most susceptible, unfortunately.
Congressman, let me turn it the other way around. The people you represent, on the West Side, do you pick up on stereotypes or disdain or dislike that our people may have, black people may have, for Latinos coming into the country, taking jobs, and just otherwise existing in the same space?
I think that's the biggest one. I think the biggest conversation and the biggest kind of fear is a feeling that a serious influx of individuals from Mexico might some kind of way cut into the labor market and especially cause the labor market to shrink and also cause wages to go down, because there's a feeling among many African Americans that somehow or another they get undercut by immigrants coming in, not only from Mexico, but from Eastern European countries as well. And so that's a big conversation.
But the comment is always made that Mexicans are coming in and taking jobs that black people don't want. What's your response to that?
Well, of course, that is one who actually grew up in rural America, who's done every kind of work that there is possible to do, have known people to do every kind of work that there is possible to be done. I disagree with that notion that people will not do certain kinds of work, but there is the feeling that somehow or another that the wages will go down, that other people will do the work more cheaply or more cost-effective for whoever's having the work done.
Just so you're familiar with the stereotype that black people are lazy, is there a belief in the Latino community that there are Mexicans and other Latinos who are coming in and taking jobs that black people just feel like they're too good for?
I mean, you see that even in second and third generation Latino communities and Mexican Americans that they oftentimes say the same thing. If you look at the head of the Minuteman group here in Illinois, she's Hispanic. And so those things do persist. There is, though, that concern that, just like my dad came here as a migrant farm worker, as a baracero, picking crops, recruited by the United States government in Mexico to come here and pick crops in 1943, there is some feeling that, hey, we've contributed, we've helped the growth, and it's off our backs that some of the food on the table in this country is put. So there's that feeling that, well, wait a second, let's talk about the contributions and focus about immigration, fixing the immigration law, but let's focus on the civil rights and human rights of those people who are putting food on the table. And frankly, we live in a global economy. If that food's not being grown here, those jobs may actually go somewhere else.
Briefly, we got about 30 seconds left. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Do either of you believe that there are times that there are powers here in the city of Chicago that like to see blacks and Latinos at odds?
Well,
again, give me the yes or no. Do you think
in preparation for our discussion, I did a little online research.
Do you believe that exists?
And I think, yes, it does exist.
Congressman,
there are always
that
powers that will exploit differences between groups.
And that's right here,
and some of that certainly happens
here in the city of Chicago.
Yes.
It happens across the country. There's a Gallup poll that substantiates that very fact.